Welcome back to the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. I'm Joe Noga, joined by Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, the Guardians suffer a little setback in their chase in the wild card race right now. Last night, they lost to the Royals in Game 3 of a 4-game series. 4-3 was the final. Logan Allen goes out there and gives up 2 runs. I gave him 5 innings after a 30-pitch first inning, and, actually didn't look all that bad. He just got, sort of ran out of pitches by the 5th and, he competed. He gave him a chance to win, but the Guardians offense couldn't get going against a bullpen game from the Royals.
Yeah, typical Logan Allen start, Joe. He kind of grinds out 5-6 innings, keeps you in the ball game. But last night, you're right. They could not score against 6 different Kansas City pitchers. It was interesting because in Boston, when the Guardians did beat the Red Sox that threw a bullpen game, Stephen Vogt said that the key to breaking up a bullpen game, to taking advantage of a bullpen game, is to work over 1 or 2 of the pitchers in that bullpen game, so you disrupt their rotation, the other team's rotation, and then they never did. They could never really get a toehold against any of those pitchers and really expose them.
Yeah, it was hard to sort of get things going and sustain any sort of offense. They scored early. Kyle Manzardo with the 2-run home run to give them a lead, but never really added on, never really sort of got things consistently going offensively. Stephen Kwan with a couple of hits, but really the offense never gave them what they needed in order to sort of sustain things against the Royals.
Yeah, and then they don't score. They're held to 2 runs, both of them in the first inning, and then as it usually takes place, the game tightens up. And in the seventh inning, they make a couple bad throws. One by Stephen Kwan, one by Bo Naylor, and that leads to 2 runs. And the game is over essentially. Tough loss, especially, Joe. It seems like every loss and every win is multiplied by 4. At this point of the season. Right now, there's 17 games left. They're 74 and 71, and they really have to take care of business if they're serious about getting into the postseason as a wild card.
Yeah, 3.5 back of Seattle in that third wild card position. Leo Rivas hits a walk-off home run in the 13th inning for the Mariners last night. They beat St. Louis. So, the loss is, hurts extra because you don't keep pace with the Mariners. You fall a full game back as is added to the deficit there. Yeah, tough to make up ground on the Mariners. They're playing at home where they're really good. And when they go deep into the night, into the 13th inning, and get a walk-off home run, that's tough to overcome for Cleveland. What'd you think going back to the Guardians game there? Allen goes 5. Matt Festa, who pitches almost every day, he comes in, gives them a clean 6th. And then in the 7th, when they gave up the lead, they had a 1-run lead going into the 7th, and Stephen Vogt decides to go to Tim Herron, when he had Eric Sabrowski there. If you're going to go to a lefty in that moment, Herron's kind of struggled this season and been a little up and down, but Vogt said after the game that Herron was the guy. That was he said that was Tim Herron's pocket. That was his hitters in that order to go after it and get, and it just didn't wind up working. He winds up giving up a walk and giving up a couple of runs.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice. I guess he went with Sabrowski a little later in the game. Another lefty that's probably pitching better than Herron, but Herron, you're right, Joe. I mean, if this was the 2024 version of Herron, no problem with the move. But, when you make moves like that in games like this, you're going to be questioned about it. And, he said that was his guy at that part of the game. Okay, so I guess you live with that, but, everything gets kind of dissected now.
Yeah, and mistakes magnified, like you said. Stephen Kwan, who's leading the majors in outfield assists and playing a Gold Glove defense in left field once again, he makes a throw on a play there in the 7th where it looked like he had the runner at the plate dead to rights, but the throw was offline. Bo Naylor comes up throwing to second base and yeets it into center field. Didn't work out for him on that play. Just we've seen Stephen Kwan, just he's got a deadly accurate arm. Once in a while, we've seen throws like that are just way offline.
Yeah, with getting back to Heron, originally in the bottom part of Kansas City's lineup, he's facing one right-hander and two lefties. So it makes sense to bring a lefty in there. He gets the right-hander, but then he walks Caglione, a lefty, and then they pinch hit Lofton, who gets the single to tie the game up. And then they've got to go to the top of the lineup with Gaddis and Garcia, who's red hot, who's had a great season, doubles off the wall in left field to put them ahead. So I'm not sure, but it just, you score 2 runs in the first inning and then don't score again. You're setting yourself up for a game like this and a loss like this, and you only get so many of these, Joe. And they won 2-0 the night before. So what goes around comes around sometimes.
Yeah, and it just emphasizes that razor thin margin that the Guardians have. When they make mistakes, they lose games. When they play clean baseball, the games are tight, but they can usually figure out a way to come out in front. So a tough loss at home. They get a chance to take 3 out of 4 tonight when they send probably their hottest, their best pitcher out on the mound in Gavin Williams. Just a chance here they really need tonight's game in order to just sort of keep pace with the Mariners and the Rangers chasing down that third wild card spot.
Yeah, Gavin has been really pitching well. He's 10-5 with a 3.17 ERA, 28 starts. This is a breakout season for him, Joe, compared to what he did last year when he battled the elbow injury and was, up and down between the minors and the big leagues. They need their guy to take a big step forward here and make an impression on the Royals and pitch well. They need the game. I mean, and so do the Royals. So, that's what makes baseball so great at this time of the year.
Yeah, Williams has been pitching really well, and they need him to step in. We asked Stephen Vogt about the 6-man rotation now that he's been through it, once fully through the 6-man rotation and how that's working out. And he says, so far so good. Is it going to affect Gavin having the extra day off as he goes for win number 11 this year?
Yeah, I think it would help him, definitely. It can't hurt him, because everybody's on 5 days, 6 days rest now, I guess, 5 days rest, with the extra starter. He seems to have responded well to it. We'll see how things go tonight, but I would think at this point of the season, he threw about 70 innings last season. He's at 150 and 2/3 right now, so he's way above his beyond his limits. They've got to be careful with him. The last thing you want to do is really kind of overexpose him and get him injured. The 6-man rotation makes a lot of sense for a rotation that is this young. I think all these guys around 25, 26 years old.
Yeah, and Vogt said that he was going to stick with this. The plan is to stick with it through at least the off day next Monday, at the end of this 17 games and 17 days stretch, and beyond that, I guess we'll probably see them or probably find out if they plan on sticking with it beyond that as well.
Yeah, I would think so. They got a day-nighter doubleheader coming up in Minneapolis too, Joe. So I would think they'd stay with it. As if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right. That's exactly right. Last night we did see Kyle Manzardo go deep, his 26th home run of the season. Just a great season so far. A great, it's his second year, but really it's his first full year, full time being on the major league roster for Manzardo. And boy, Hoynes, in the first inning, he launched that ball. It was 432 feet, I think, to right center field with a runner on base. And it was his longest home run of his career. I think it was the longest home run hit by a Guardians player this year. And I think it was the hardest hit ball he's ever had coming off the bat in terms of exit velocity, up over it was 100 and some miles an hour off the bat. For Manzardo, his 26th home run, now the 4th most in franchise history for a second-year player behind Carlos Santana, who hit 27 in 2011. Corey Snyder hit 33 in 1987, and Hal Trotsky 35 in 1934. So Manzardo putting his name up there with some franchise greats. Just what have you thought of the development of Kyle Manzardo at first base, and now that he's pretty much taken over with Carlos Santana moving on?
Really impressed with Manzardo, Joe. Just the way he's developed, the way he's just kind of hung in there, through a slow start, and just he's the power is always there, but he seems to really have found his swing after the All-Star break. Just and he's only 25, 26 years old. So I think he's really it's fun to kind of project what this guy could become. I don't know. He's a left-handed hitter. He's not built like Jim Thome, but could he develop into a significant power hitter in a lineup that desperately needs it? You put him behind Jose Ramirez, give Jose some protection. And it looks like he's just getting better and better right now. I mean, and we don't know. I don't know if he's ever going to hit for average, Joe. I don't know if he's going to be one of those guys that hits 280, 290. But if he could hit 250, 240, 250, right around there with the power he has, that you've got a middle of the lineup hitter right there.
Yeah, the extra base potential is really what stands out for him. He's at 26 home runs right now. Do you think he gets to 30? He could have a 30 home run, 75 to 80 RBI season. And when you talk about replacing the productivity of Josh Naylor, I mean, that puts him in the conversation there. Certainly the at-bat quality isn't as high as, the finished product that Josh Naylor is, but, you knew what you were getting with Manzardo when you decided to trade Naylor this year. I just think the way they brought him along with Carlos Santana, sort of, being the horse in the stable, the guy that they could rely on early on in the season, and then just sort of transition to Manzardo at this point. I think the plan was always to have Manzardo be the guy at this point in the season.
No doubt about it. They brought Santana in to replace Naylor to see, what kind of team they would have, to see if they could make a serious postseason run. And then, when it became obvious they weren't going to win the division and they were going to have to slug it out in a wild card, I think they knew Manzardo needed at bats. They made they leased Carlos and, just kind of open first base and DH for him and say, come, here it is. Here's your opportunity. Take advantage of it, and he certainly has done that, Joe.
Well, now that brings into question what's the future for Manzardo, because we've seen him at first base, and I'll go back to a play in the second inning last night. I believe it's Kyle Isbell chopped a ball off the home plate and sort of hung in the air. Logan Allen made a play on it. And actually took the ball to first base himself and outran Kyle Isbell to the bag. But that was impressive, and Logan Allen was lobbying for some pitch running opportunities afterwards, talking about his sprint speed, 24 feet per second, I think, covering that 55 feet between the mound and first base. But all jokes aside, Kyle Manzardo was who I was watching on that play, and he was in no man's land. It was a high chopper to the right side of the mound, a high chopper, and he took one or two steps the wrong direction, and all of a sudden it was Logan Allen or nothing.
Yeah, he got caught in between there, Joe. And that's the thing with all, kind of new first basemen or, first baseman learning the speed of the game at the big league level. You see guys get caught like that. And I think, obviously that's a lesson learned by Manzardo. We'll see if he, if he repeats that. I doubt he will. But, you've got to know how far you can go from first base if you're a first baseman, how far you can stray and then get back to the bag to make the play. And we know one thing about Manzardo. He'll work at it, Joe. I don't know if he's the most naturally gifted first baseman defensively, but he's going to work at it. And if you keep hitting 26 home runs, 26, 30 home runs a year, you're going to play somewhere. You're going to either be the DH or the first baseman, especially on this team.
Yeah. And we talk about, and we've talked to in the past, we've talked to Tito about, a 25-year-old kid, just getting his feet under him in the big leagues. You don't want to pigeonhole him as a DH. You want to give him the opportunity to show that he can play there. But again, at the major league level, you're opening yourself up to a lot of mistakes, and you got to live with a lot if that's going to be the case. You don't want Manzardo to just be a DH, but you do have options at first base behind him if that's the case. You've got CJ Kafis, who's there right now, and right as of this moment is probably the best defensive first baseman on the big league roster. But John Kenzie Noel showed especially in that game in Tampa Bay over the weekend, he can really pick it at first base, and he's a gifted athlete no matter where you put him on the diamond. He surprises you with his defense in right field. He's stopping balls at first base, and it sort of makes you turn your head there. We've seen David Fry come up big in his versatility to be able to play three different positions in a game. Last year he turned a double play. What was it? A 3-2-3 double play against the Yankees that he turned, that was really impressive. And beyond that, you've got Ralphie Velasquez, who's tearing up Double A right now and looking like the future of the position at first base for the Guardians.
Yeah, they've got some options, Joe. Definitely. With Fry is really an interesting guy. He's a right-handed hitter. He could really, next year, if he's healthy with the elbow, he could really help out there. Kifus, is an excellent defensive player, but we haven't seen a whole lot of offense from him, Joe. And if you're gonna, you've got to get some offense there. Noel. I agree with you. He looked really good against Tampa Bay at the one game he has played at first, but we still don't know. I mean, this is a mystery. That guy's a mystery to me. I mean, we've seen the power, but we haven't seen it consistently. We've seen him swing the bat well, but we haven't seen that consistently. To me, he's got to be an offensive player first, and we just haven't. He hasn't got the opportunity, to me, in my opinion, to really kind of bring that out. But right now, Manzardo's kind of the head of the class to me.
Yeah, Noel is slowly but surely becoming more of Oscar Gonzalez than I think any of us really have wanted to see or anticipated seeing. He really needs to work on his plate discipline. His plate discipline is going to get him more opportunities to play first base, I think, if that's the case. All right, a couple of notes, a couple of things to just check off here. Gabriel Arias, who got hit on the wrist, got checked out by a hand specialist, and it looks like he can't really do any more damage by playing with the injury. He's just going to have to deal with some pain this year.
Yeah, that's what Stephen Vogt told reporters before last night's game. I talked to Arias after the game. He said he should be in the lineup tonight. We'll see if that's correct or not. Yeah, the MRIs and the tests showed no structural damage in the wrist, and it's just going to be painful to play with it. He got hit on August 28th by a pitch against Seattle. Then on Monday night, he kind of re-aggravated the injury, sliding into home plate, scoring a run. So that's the deal with Arias. And if he needs a couple more days, Joe, it's not like there's a big drop off in defense, because Rocchio's playing really, really well at shortstop, and he's swinging the bat too.
Yeah, Rocchio, the way he's swinging, you don't have to push things with Arias. You can ease him into that sort of comeback from the injury if that's the case. We did see, after we talked about it yesterday on the podcast, probably minutes after we talked about it on the podcast, Major League Baseball released the rosters for the Arizona Fall League. No Travis Bazzana in the AFL for the Guardians. He's going to take some time and go back to Australia for the offseason, but we will get to see Chase DeLauder for a third time in the Arizona Fall League. And another surprising name on that list, a guy that we haven't seen pitch in quite some time.
Yeah, Daniel Espino, former number one pick of the Guardians in 2019 when they were still the Indians, Joe. This is a guy that's only thrown, 18 and a third innings in the minor league innings in the last 4 years because a series of unfortunate injuries. But, when he was healthy, Joe, he was the talk of baseball, big arm, big strikeout numbers. And I'm really anxious to see exactly what he can do, because I don't think they're sending him to the Arizona Fall League unless he's ready to pitch. But we were talking before the podcast, Joe. What role do you think he'll be in?
Yeah, I think he's got to be in a relief role. especially after dealing with all the injuries. You're not going to put the burden of, starters innings on him right away. He's got to come in and be a one inning guy at this point. And maybe that works in his favor. Maybe his stuff plays up if he's able to regain what he once had. But that's all remains to be seen. He was working in Arizona at the Guardians training facility. He transitioned over to AAA and has been working there in the last few days or so. And, we'll probably ride out the rest of the AAA season before heading back to Arizona to start working the Arizona Fall League. We're going to talk to the Guardians player development folks today to find out more about what the plan is for him and DeLauder. But I would imagine that it's similar to what they did with Chase DeLauder last year. They'll do with Espino and DeLauder. They can control more in that fall league, because the rules aren't as strict as they would be. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah, and they can bounce back between the Arizona Fall League games and Goodyear, Arizona. They're all in the same neighborhood, so they can train at the Guardians facility, and while playing a couple games a week. That's what they did with DeLauder last year. DeLauder, are they going to build him a statue out there, Joe? That this is the third year he's been out there. Hopefully, he makes an impression. He stays healthy, and when the rest of his career he spends playing with the Guardians.
Yeah, it's unprecedented to see a prospect, but again, unprecedented the number of times he's been injured and had his season derailed by injuries. So just any at bats right now for Chase DeLauder, probably a really good thing. Last thing I want to talk about, last subject, something came up as we're talking in the press box last night and saying, if this Guardians team makes the postseason, if they make a wild card run right now, if the wild card series started today, Hoynes, who would be your number one starter? Who would be the pitcher that you ran out there? Let me ask the question in two ways. Who would be the starter that you run out there first in game one? And who do you think the Guardians will run out there in game one? Two different sort of takes on it.
Yeah, Joe, I would think my gut, and I think I think what the Guardians would do, and I agree with it. I would go with Bibee. Tanner Bibee would be my opening day starter in the postseason. I know he hasn't had the best of seasons. I know it hasn't gone his way a lot this year, but this is a guy that pitched made 4 starts in the postseason last year. He has the experience, so I'd go with the experience in Bibee in game one.
And the guy who's having the better season this year, the guy who's looked, more solid, more reliable, more dominant in Gavin Williams. He was in the bullpen for those starts for Tanner Bibee last year in the postseason. He was a guy who didn't pitch well last year, but this year has really turned it around, really put in the work and diversified his arsenal. He's got 3 different fastballs. He understands now, I think, a little bit better the strategy of how to pitch in the major leagues. And what we've seen this year is that massive leap forward in development for Gavin Williams. I think the answer he gave is correct. I think the guy that Stephen Vogt would go with is the guy that you're paying, who signed the big contract extension in Tanner Bibee to be that guy, to be that number one starter in the postseason. But I think the guy who should start game one, if you need to win that game right now, would be Gavin Williams. I think he gives you the best chance against another team's number one.
Yeah, and Williams did make one postseason start last year, Joe, against the Yankees in the ALCS. It didn't go well, but he does have postseason experience, and he has been. I think he definitely been their strongest starter this season.
The question is, beyond Williams and Bibee, who gets that number 3 start or in a decisive game? You've got Slade Ciccone, you've got Joey Cantillo, who pitched really well the other night. You got Parker Messick, who's been outstanding in 3 of his 4 outings, and Logan Allen, who always seems to give you an opportunity to win. And maybe that's the kind of guy you need in a game 3, is just a guy to give you 5 and try to get you to the point where you can gut one out.
Yeah, just an interesting group of 4 pitchers right there, Joe. You've got 3 lefties in Allen, Cantillo, and Messick, and a right-hander who has been really kind of, just kind of came out of the weeds here. That's really surprised a lot of people this season in Ciccone, who flirted with a no-hitter his last time out. So, those are good choices to have If I had to make the choice, I think I'd go with Ciccone just because he's gone deep. He's shown me the ability to get deep into a game. But certainly the way Joey Cantillo pitched his last time out, the way Messick has pitched, you could throw a wild card in there with Messick. Whoever you're probably facing in the postseason hasn't seen this kid. So, just a lot of good choices right there.
Yeah, and it would be an interesting problem to have. Let's hope the Guardians make it to the point where they have that problem, and we'll see as it plays out tonight and over the weekend. 4 big games coming up before the end of this homestand for Cleveland. All right, Hoynes, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. We will check in with you again on Friday.
All right, Joe.